Hi, this is Judy Shintani from Foothill College, and today we're going to talk about Do Ho Suh, who's a Korean artist, one of my favorite artists of all time, and he does some really unusual work. So let's get into my PowerPoint about his work so you can learn about him. Okay, so this is one of his pieces, which is a building made out of fabric, and it's what he's most known for. But let's go back into his history about why he makes this kind of art. So Do Ho Suh was born in 1962 in Seoul, South Korea. His art's very much about his own history of migration, moving to the US in his late 20s. His sculptures, installations, and drawings and his work explores the notion of personal space and the boundaries of identity and the relationship between the individual and the collective body. Collective body could be your community, the people around you, the country that you're in. The collective body is whatever the area is outside of you as an individual. So he's best known for his extraordinary fabric sculptures, and he makes these renderings, almost replicas of personal spaces that he lived in, from his childhood home to his New York apartment and studio.
Do Ho Suh has created a body of work that is undeniably unique.
He has developed a signature style of work, and when one sees his work, one immediately knows this is work by Do Ho Suh.
Tapping into his own history of migration from South Korea to the United States, his art can be both an intensely visual and a deeply personal experience.
He is a magician. He has the ability to evoke emotions in a visitor that is unlike any other experience.
He's able to tap in emotionally to something that I think so many of us have experienced, and that's a sense of longing, of desire for the comfort, the feeling that we know as home.
It's clear to understand, and a very simple approach, however very profound meaning.
The more and more I work, I think my art and the life merges. I don't know how I would make anything without my own experience.
In the middle of the UC San Diego campus sits an unexpected sight. This is Fallen Star, one of Do Ho Suh's most well-known works of public art. It is made to look as if a typical family home from the East Coast had flown and landed on top of the engineering building, together with its garden.
I wanted to make something that addresses this campus, because most of the students probably left their home for the first time and come here to study, and pretty much everybody has been displaced. So that whole experience going into the slanted house makes you very disoriented, physically and psychologically. And then that's the kind of feeling that I wanted to create, to talk about the idea of the displacement.
Even though the house may look like any home from the East Coast, the work is in fact grounded by Do Ho's own history of displacement, having uprooted himself out from South Korea and moving to Providence in the East Coast when he was 29. It's a theme that runs in many of his works.
We can all relate to the idea of home. Many of us are moving around constantly from one environment to another. He treats the idea of home in a very personal way because he charts his own movement, but he does this in a way that many people can appreciate and relate to.
Do Ho was born in 1962 and raised in Seoul, South Korea. Before coming to the United States, Do Ho was already a working artist with an undergraduate and master's degree in traditional Korean painting.
I grew up in a very artistic family environment because my father is a painter, and my mother has extensive knowledge in Korean cultural heritage. So I was just very naturally exposed to the artistic background, and I think that's probably why I end up being an artist.
He moved to Providence in 1991. With just a basic understanding of English and no real plans for his future, he decided to enroll in the painting program at the Rhode Island School of Design, but as a sophomore.
Nobody accepted me, no school accepted me, but the undergraduate program at Rhode Island School of Design, so I had no choice but going to the RISD.
Despite having to start from scratch again, Do Ho's time at RISD would have a profound impact on his artistic development. It was here that he learnt about sculpture.
At RISD, you have to take one non-major elective course per each semester. So I ended up choosing figure in contemporary sculpture. And I thought I would maybe learn making figurative sculpture, which I really didn't like to do. But it turned out to be very conceptual, and that class was responsible for me switching from painting.
At RISD, Do Ho created his first major sculpture called Metal Jacket, made entirely out of military dog tags.
His work very much reflects his personal experience. As a young man, he served in the military in Korea, and this manifests itself early on, where he uses dog tags to create a giant sculpture that culminates in a Christ figure or some kind of religious figure.
The work was made just after the LA riots in 1992, which erupted when the police officers involved in the beating of Rodney King were acquitted. But in the ensuing chaos, the media instead focused on Koreans aggressively protecting their stores from looters, which to many Korean Americans was harmful and one-sided and only intensified racial tensions.
For me, it was kind of a wake-up call. I started to see myself as a Korean within a much larger context of the United States, which consists of, many different cultures and races. So that was very unsettling.
He was thinking very much about this relationship of the individual to the group and how a person can become subsumed within a group and can bend to the will of a collective body. So that for him was a very personal idea based on his own experience, but it also is a very universal idea. Again, it's something that we all relate to.
He often used very tiny figure, but it's collective effort making something kind of big pieces. He transformed his kind of social practice and the question of identity to the visual.
He's thought a lot about philosophy, about Buddhist ideas of karma, and the ways in which we are all interconnected. He's made a lot of work, figurative work, that deals very much with these ideas. And he's posed this as a question, where does the individual end? Where does one person end and the next begins?
But the work that would truly set Do Ho apart came in 1999, just after he finished his master's degree at Yale University. It was the first of his iconic architectural sculptures, a one-to-one scale replica of his childhood home, rendered entirely in fabric.
I think the experience of a Do Ho fabric sculpture is one that a visitor probably never forgets. You can see through it, you can feel the breeze or the current move through it. It becomes an incredible hybrid of a kind of ghosted space and a physical reality. And it's a really tremendous experience to be in one of those spaces.
My childhood home was very important and still important to me. It's such a special place. My fabric series was not really about recreating the physical space. It was more about transporting the memory of the space. So it's a kind of intangible quality. I thought the fabric, which is almost like a veil, because that's what I wanted to deal with, and that's wanted to bring with me from one place to the other. So for that reason, I chose fabric.
I do think he's really captured the sense of longing, the idea of memory. A memory is something that exists for us kind of almost in fantasy. You can't recreate it, you can't make it physical again. And I think the fabric sculptures echo that really beautifully.
His fabric series has expanded to include more spaces of personal significance to Do Ho, from his boarding house in Providence to his apartments in New York.
Every time it's kind of based on where he lived, but it's also mobile, light, so it's very easy to move together with him. So always his home is with him.
And contrary to popular belief, Do Ho's fabric sculptures are not exact replicas.
From the beginning, I knew it would not be exact. Probably it's like maybe 80% accurate, but it's enough for me to be reminded of the actual space and the time I've been in that space.
Do you call yourself sentimental?
Or I don't know. You think I'm sentimental? I mean, I think why I want to holding on to memory so much is one thing to think about, but maybe what we are is just all about the memories. Our existence itself. Everything started from here. I've been keeping my studio, even if I spend more time in London. It's 400 square feet, very tiny place. But so many things happened in that space. It's a big part of my life, the whole New York and particularly this apartment.
Do Ho has returned from London to work on a new project about his apartment.
Welcome, this is my studio and apartment.
But instead of using fabric, he's wrapped the entire space with paper and is making a life-sized rubbing of it.
The rubbing does something different because the rubbing captures the texture. So in a way, it is more accurate than fabric pieces. Once it's all done, I'm going to peel this paper from the space and transport it from here to the other place to recreate the space. Process of rubbing is literally caressing the surface with a pencil, and it's a gesture of loving. I'm constantly reminded by the details of the space, like the times that I spent in the space and the little things that I thought I completely forgot about. And when I discover those things, it's quite delightful. It's exactly why I have been doing rubbings in the space, and hopefully I can take these things with me and it will become the veil of memories.
I had the chance with him to go and visit that space. It was a tremendously moving experience. This idea of creating a rubbing of this space, of this kind of constant caressing of this space that he felt was home for him. To be in that space and to feel all of the love and time and devotion that's gone into making that was really tremendously moving.
I hope you enjoyed the film and this lesson on Do Ho Suh, an amazing Korean artist, one of my favorite artists of all time. And think about your own living space and the memories you have there, and maybe go and feel along your walls and along your bed and think about your time there, and also about you as an individual and you as part of a community and part of maybe a neighborhood or part of a family. Okay, until next week, thanks. This is Judy Shintani from Foothill College.